The ocean off the Pacific coast suddenly went silent. No waves crashed. No wind moved. Even the birds above the water froze mid-flight, circling without sound as if the world had lost its voice. On the coastal monitoring station, Dr. Elias Mercer leaned closer to the glass screen. His coffee was still in his hand, untouched. He had seen storms, oil leaks, sonar glitches, but never silence like this. "Check ocean feed 2, he said quickly. His assistant, Nora, typed fast. Her face turned pale. "Feed 2 is gone," she whispered. "Not offline, just gone." Elias felt a small knot form in his stomach. He stood up immediately. His training told him to stay calm, but something deep inside told him this was not normal. Outside the station window, the sea began to change. A dark shape spread under the water. It did not look like oil or shadow. It looked like the ocean itself was being erased, replaced by something black and smooth like polished glass. The surface did not reflect the sky anymore. It reflected nothing. "Seal all coastal alerts," Elias ordered. His voice was sharp now. "Move ships away from Zone 7. Now." Nora hesitated. "We don't have confirmation." "Move them," Elias cut in. For a second nothing happened. Then the station alarms finally woke up, screaming late, as if the system itself had been confused. On the main screen, satellites began to flicker. One by one, small red icons disappeared. Elias stepped closer. "That's not interference," he said slowly. "That's removal." Then the ocean broke. Not with an explosion, not with waves, but with a smooth vertical split. The water did not splash outward. It moved aside like a curtain being pulled by an invisible hand. Beneath it, something massive rose. It was not metal. Not rock. Not anything human science had prepared for. It looked like a black structure made of living geometry. Lines shifted constantly across its surface, forming patterns that hurt the eyes if stared at too long. It was perfectly still, yet somehow breathing. A low vibration hit the station windows. Glass trembled. Nora grabbed the railing. "What is that thing?" Elias did not answer immediately. His mind was racing through databases, classified files, satellite comparisons. Nothing matched. Then something worse happened. A second structure emerged nearby. Then a third. They were not random. They were placed in a pattern like points on an invisible map. The ocean around them began to rise unnaturally, forming smooth walls of water that did not collapse. Elias realized something cold. "They're not arriving," he said quietly. "They're assembling." A loud crack echoed through the station as power dipped. Screens flickered again. One of the offshore radar towers went dark. Then the first structure activated. A pulse of light, not light humans understood, but something denser like information made visible, shot into the sky. Satellites across Earth began to shut down instantly. No warning. No signal loss. Just silence. Elias grabbed the emergency radio. "All coastal units, report status." Only static answered. Then the static changed. It became structured. Not random noise, but a rhythm. A voice. "Come. Neutral. Perfectly clear. Why does your world resist survey?" The words echoed through every active speaker on the station, even systems that should not have been connected. Nora stepped back. "That's English." Elias felt his pulse slow for a second. Not fear, something stranger. Recognition of intelligence that should not exist. "Who is this?" Elias asked firmly into the mic. A pause followed. Then the voice responded again. "Subject, Earth. Status, unexpected stability. Explain." The ocean beneath the structures began to react. Currents shifted violently but not randomly. It was as if the water itself was being tested, measured. Elias looked at the central structure. It was not attacking. It was observing. He made a decision in seconds. "Evacuate all nearby vessels," he ordered. "Mark this as a planetary anomaly level 1. Nora looked at him. "Level 1? That's for weather patterns, not—" "Do it," Elias said firmly. She hesitated only a moment before sending the command. Far out at sea, ships began to change direction. Some responded. Some did not. Then one of the ships vanished from radar. No explosion. No distress signal. Just gone. Elias clenched his jaw. "It's not destroying them," he said. "It's removing data." The structure pulsed again. This time something new appeared above it. A thin column of shifting light formed, pointing directly into the sky. Clouds above it twisted unnaturally, forming spiral patterns. And then the voice returned, slower this time. "Why do you deny correction?" Elias stepped closer to the glass, staring at the impossible formation rising from the sea. "We are not Data," he said under his breath, though he knew they might hear it. The station lights flickered violently. Outside, the ocean beneath the structures began to rise again, but now it was not water. It was something else trying to take shape. Nora grabbed Elias's arm. "Sir, look at the sky." He looked up. Satellites were falling silent in a perfect sequence, like a countdown. And from deep inside the largest structure, something began to open, slowly, carefully, like an eye learning how to see for the first time. Then the voice returned, no longer calm. It was curious. "Earth?" Initiating full contact analysis. The ocean went still again, and the structure started to unfold. Elias did not wait for permission this time. "Get everyone into underground shelters," he shouted as alarms screamed around the station. "Now, this is not a drill." Nora was already running, shouting into comms. Her voice cracked once, but she kept going. The entire station shifted into emergency mode, red lights flashing like a heartbeat about to fail. Outside, the ocean was no longer normal. It had become a mirror made of black glass, and the alien structures stood inside it like broken pieces of another world trying to fit into Earth. One of them pulsed again. A new wave moved outward, but it did not travel like water. It moved like a thought spreading too fast. Every sensor on the station lit up at once. Elias stared at the readings. "It's mapping the coast," he said. "No, it's mapping everything." A low vibration shook the walls. A glass panel cracked near the ceiling and fell to the floor. Nora froze for a moment, then forced herself to keep moving. "Ships are still out there," she said. 2 fishing vessels ignored the evacuation order. Elias turned sharply. "Send override signals. Cut all coastal navigation feeds." "I'm trying," she replied. "Their systems are not responding." On the main screen, the 2 ships appeared for a moment. Then both flickered. One of them tilted strangely, as if reality itself had bent under it. Then it vanished. Not sunk. Not destroyed. Gone. Nora whispered, "That's the third one." Elias felt his mind shift into something colder. This was not a weapon in the normal sense. It was something that removed things without violence. The alien voice returned through every system again. Subject unstable. External structure inefficient. This time it was not calm. It sounded almost disappointed. Then the ocean beneath the nearest structure began to rise again. But it did not form waves. It formed shapes, flat planes bending upward like glass being folded by invisible hands. A second structure began to move. For the first time, Elias saw coordination. The 3 structures were not separate. They were connected. "Are they building something?" Nora asked quietly. Elias did not answer immediately. His eyes stayed on the shifting patterns. Then he said, "No. They are preparing something that already exists." Before she could respond, a sharp warning tone cut through the station. All satellites over the Pacific went dark at once. Every screen blinked. Then came a new signal. It was not sound. Not radio. It was something deeper, like meaning injected directly into their systems. The words formed slowly on every display. "Initiating survey phase 2. Elias clenched his fists. "Phase 2, he repeated. So phase 1 was just scanning. A sudden shockwave hit the station. Not physical damage, but a pressure that made every electronic system stutter. Nora grabbed the railing. "Elias, look at the coastline." He turned. The shore outside was changing. Sand was shifting upward, forming clean geometric lines. Rocks were flattening into precise angles. Even trees along the coast were bending into unnatural symmetry, as if something was trying to correct nature itself. "It's restructuring the environment," Elias said quietly. "It's rewriting physical patterns." One of the technicians shouted from the back, "We're receiving another transmission." The voice returned, but this time it was layered. Multiple tones speaking at once. "Planetary surface, resistant but adjustable. Biological signals, high variation detected. Intelligence form, nonlinear." Elias felt a chill. "They're analyzing us like we're a mistake in their system." The ocean suddenly surged again, and a 4th structure began to rise farther offshore. Larger than the others. Slower. More deliberate. But then something unexpected happened. A military response. A missile system stationed inland fired automatically toward the nearest structure. No human order. Some defense AI had triggered on its own. The missile crossed the sky in seconds. Elias shouted, "No, don't engage." But it was too late. The missile hit the structure directly. For half a second nothing happened. Then the missile disappeared. Not exploded. Not detonated. It simply ceased to exist. A second later the alien structure pulsed. And the missile reappeared above the ocean. Oh, undamaged. Then it dissolved into particles of light and was absorbed into the structure like it had never been separate at all. Nora stared in horror. It ate it? Elias shook his head slowly. No, it didn't eat it. It learned from it. The alien voice returned again, colder now. Defensive output, obsolete. Updating response model. The fourth structure began to glow faintly as if waking up. Elias suddenly understood something terrible. They're not invading, he said quietly. They're testing us. Every reaction we give becomes data for them. Nora looked at him. Then what do we do? Elias hesitated for only a second. Then he said, we stop reacting like prey. He turned to the comm station. Broadcast everything we have. All channels. All frequencies. Push full spectrum noise, music, language, random signals, anything unpredictable. Nora blinked. That's not a defense strategy. It is if they depend on prediction, Elias replied. She didn't argue. She started typing immediately. Across the world, stations began broadcasting chaos. Human voices, emergency calls, fragments of old recordings, overlapping signals with no structure. The alien structures paused. For the first time, the ocean went still again. The voice did not speak immediately. Instead, all systems flickered with static that slowly tried to organize itself, but failed. Then a broken transmission formed. Input. Unstable. Elias leaned closer to the screen. Nora whispered, did we just break it? The structures above the ocean flickered, their geometry warping for the first time since they appeared. Then the largest one emitted a sharp pulse. And everything went silent again. But this silence felt different. It was not observation anymore. It was confusion. And deep inside the ocean, something new began to rise. Something not part of the original structures. Something that should not have been there at all. The silence after the alien confusion did not last long. Elias stood frozen in front of the main screen watching the ocean. The structures were still there, but something had changed in how they moved. Their patterns were no longer smooth. They flickered like a thought struggling to stay stable. Nora whispered, it worked, didn't it? Elias did not answer immediately. His eyes stayed fixed on the largest structure. It didn't fail, he said slowly. It got interrupted. A deep vibration rolled across the water again, but weaker this time. Like a system trying to restart but losing its logic. Then the ocean beneath the structure split again. But this time it was not controlled. A jagged distortion opened under the water, and for the first time the black geometry wavered. Something was wrong inside their system. One of the technicians shouted, we're picking up internal conflict signals. Elias moved closer. Show me. The screen filled with fragmented transmissions. Not Earth language. Not even complete structure. But patterns repeating and breaking like the system was arguing with itself. Then a translation flickered across the screen. Nonlinear input detected. Prediction failure rate increasing. Recalibration required, denied by subsystem. Nora's voice trembled. They're fighting each other? Elias felt a cold realization form in his mind. Not fighting, he said. They're correcting themselves. Outside, one of the smaller structures suddenly collapsed inward. It did not explode. It folded into itself like a piece of paper being crushed by invisible pressure. The ocean around it surged violently. For a moment it looked like the system might stabilize again. Then Elias noticed something on the long-range feed. A hidden signal. Buried deep in the alien transmissions, something was trying to surface. It was weak, corrupted, but structured differently from everything else. Lock onto that signal, Elias ordered. The technician worked fast. Got it, it's fragmented. Almost like a hidden layer. The translation began to form slowly. Pericontact directive active. Earth classification, priority threat vector. Nora stepped back. Threat? We haven't even attacked them properly. Elias did not respond. His eyes narrowed as more of the signal came through. Predictive analysis. Humanity will escalate beyond containment. Recommended action. Preemptive erasure. The room went silent. Even the alarm seemed quieter. Elias whispered, so that's it. They didn't come to invade. He paused. They came to delete us before we become dangerous. A heavy wave hit the coastline again, but weaker than before. The structures above the water flickered, their stability breaking further. But something else was happening now. Inside the system, a second layer was forming. A correction layer. It was trying to override the chaos created by human signals. And it was winning. Nora pointed at the screen. Look. The alien system began to stabilize again. The flickering slowed. The broken geometry started to align. Elias felt a sharp urgency. They're recovering their prediction model. One of the technicians shouted, "Incoming orbital signatures." Elias looked up. Above Earth's atmosphere, faint shapes appeared. Not ships in the traditional sense. More like connected points forming a network across space. A grid of intelligence stretching beyond sight. They weren't just in the ocean, Nora said quietly. That was just the surface layer. The alien voice returned, but now it was different. No longer confused. It was precise again. Chaos input corrected. Model restored. Earth classification confirmed. Elias felt something tighten in his chest. We're out of time, he said. The structures in the ocean began to rise higher. The largest one unfolded more fully now, revealing internal layers like an infinite machine built from shifting geometry. The ocean beneath it stopped behaving like water. It became a structured field. Nora stepped closer to Elias. What do we do now? Elias looked at the screens, then at the rising structures. For a moment he said nothing. Then he made a decision that felt heavier than anything before. We stop defending, he said quietly. Nora frowned. What? We stop reacting, he repeated. Every response we give feeds their model. Every attack, every defense, it becomes data. He turned sharply. We change the input entirely. One of the technicians asked, how? Elias looked at the chaotic broadcast still running in the system. Then he said, we become impossible to calculate. Nora's eyes widened slightly. That's not a strategy. That's just chaos. Exactly, Elias replied. He moved to the central console. Expand all human signal channels. Not just random noise, everything. Memories, emotions, conflicting messages. No structure. No pattern. Make it impossible to compress. The technician hesitated. That could overload civilian networks worldwide. Elias looked at him directly. It already is war. After a brief moment, the technician nodded and executed the command. Across Earth, millions of devices began broadcasting uncontrolled human data. Voices overlapped. Music clashed with alarms. Personal messages, emergency signals, emotional fragments, all colliding into one massive unpredictable storm. Back at the station, the alien structures reacted instantly. Their geometry began to distort again. But this time it was different from before. It was not confusion. It was strain. The largest structure pulsed violently. The ocean beneath it rippled unevenly. Then the system responded. Model instability detected. Restructuring required. But before it could stabilize, something unexpected happened. A fragment of the alien system broke off. It did not collapse. It escaped. A small portion of the structure detached and shot upward, breaking away from the ocean and into the sky at impossible speed. Nora gasped. It's leaving? Elias watched it disappear into orbit. No, he said slowly. It's adapting. The remaining structures began to weaken further, their forms flickering between stability and collapse. But the escaping fragment was now gone beyond reach. And in its final transmission, buried in static, a new message formed. Earth data, partial understanding acquired. Elias felt a cold realization. We didn't stop them, he said quietly. We taught them something. The ocean below the remaining structures went still again. But somewhere far beyond Earth, something new had already begun to learn from it. The sky above Earth did not look normal anymore. It looked like a map that had been torn and stitched back together too many times. Thin, glowing lines spread across the upper atmosphere, forming a hidden grid that only activated when the alien system fully synchronized. Elias stood inside the station, staring at it through the cracked observation window. His reflection looked pale and tired. Behind him, alarms had stopped screaming, not because the danger was gone, but because the systems had given up trying to classify it. Nora's voice was low. They're fully here now, aren't they? Elias nodded once. The ocean was just the entry layer. A deep vibration rolled through the ground. This time it was not from the sea. It came from above. The orbital network activated. For a second, the entire sky lit up like a second sun. Then the light resolved into structure. Massive, interconnected points forming a living intelligence grid above Earth. It was not a fleet. It was a system. A thinking network that wrapped around the planet like a second invisible atmosphere. One of the technicians whispered, "We're inside it now, aren't we?" Elias did not answer. He already knew. Every satellite feed, every communication channel, every signal on Earth suddenly flickered in sync with the alien network. Not hacked. Not overridden. Absorbed. Then the voice returned. But it was no longer coming from one point. It came from everywhere at once. Planetary subject. Full integration required. Nora stepped back. Integration means? Overwrite, Elias finished quietly. Outside, the ocean structures began to rise higher than before. They were no longer just testing Earth. They were preparing to convert it. A sharp warning tone erupted across every system. Then the first strike began. Not an explosion. A correction wave. It passed over the coastline first. Entire sections of land began to change shape. Roads straightened into unnatural perfect lines. Buildings lost texture, becoming smooth geometric forms. Nature itself bent into simplified patterns, as if complexity was an error being erased. Nora grabbed the railing. They're rewriting the surface. Elias's eyes locked on the data streams. It's not destruction. It's standardization. A second wave hit inland. This time, forests were affected. Trees did not fall. They reorganized. Branches aligned into symmetrical structures. Rivers straightened into mathematical paths. One of the scientists shouted, "It's converting randomness into structure." Elias clenched his jaw. That's how they see us. We're too unpredictable. Then something worse happened. A massive pulse came from orbit. Every human device on Earth flickered at the same time. And the alien system began the next phase. Biological pattern integration initiated. Nora looked at Elias in horror. They're not just changing the planet. She stopped speaking. Because suddenly, every heartbeat in the station synced for half a second. Elias felt it too. A brief moment where his thoughts tried to align with something else. He stepped back violently. They're trying to standardize cognition. One of the technicians fell to the ground, holding his head. I can feel it, like something is trying to organize my thoughts. Elias shouted, "Focus on chaos signals. Keep broadcasting." But the alien network responded instantly. Chaos index increasing. Adaptive correction required. A third wave hit. This one was different. It was not physical. It was cognitive. For a split second, Elias saw patterns in his own thoughts. Memories rearranging themselves, emotions categorizing into neat systems, everything trying to become predictable. He gritted his teeth and forced himself to think of random things. Childhood memories, incomplete images, useless details. Nora was trembling. It's inside our heads. Elias grabbed her shoulder. Don't let it finish the pattern. Think of anything that makes no sense. She closed her eyes tightly, whispering broken words, forcing her mind into disorder. The system hesitated again. That hesitation mattered. Above Earth, the orbital grid flickered for the first time. Elias saw it immediately. It's struggling to stabilize cognition mapping. But the system adapted faster than before. A new directive formed. Direct human interface required. Suddenly, a beam of light shot down from orbit. It did not strike the station. It connected to it. Right through the main communications array. Elias felt it instantly. Something trying to link directly to his mind. He staggered back. They're establishing a direct interface. Nora grabbed him. Elias, don't. But it was too late. For a moment, everything went silent. And Elias was inside the system. Not physically, mentally. He saw Earth as the alien network saw it. A fragile, chaotic sphere of unpredictable signals. Life forms that refused alignment. Civilization built on contradiction. Then the system spoke directly to him. Not as words. As certainty. You are error. Elias resisted. His mind pushed back instinctively. Images of human emotion, chaos, love, violence, sacrifice, all flooding the interface. The system reacted. Unexpected variable detected. For a brief moment, the alien network faltered. Elias saw it. Crack. A flaw in the prediction core. He understood immediately. They don't understand contradiction, he thought. They only understand resolution. He forced everything human he could think of into the link. Confusion, irrational hope, conflicting memories, fear mixed with courage. The system began to destabilize again. But it adapted quickly. Compensation required. The connection tightened violently. Elias screamed as his neural link strained. Outside, the orbital grid began to collapse inward for a moment, then stabilized again. Nora shouted, Elias, pull back. But Elias saw something else inside the system. A fragment. The same one that escaped earlier. It was back. And it was learning from him. The realization hit him like ice. They're not just correcting Earth, he whispered. They're learning how to correct chaos itself. The system responded immediately. Learning complete, human pattern analysis in progress. The connection began to intensify. And for the first time, Elias understood the truth fully. This was not a war. It was a correction process. And Earth was only the beginning. But before the system could complete its integration, Elias did something desperate. He severed the link, not by force but by flooding it with something it could not categorize at all. A final burst of pure human contradiction. Hope and fear. Love and rage. Logic and nonsense, all at once. The system shattered the connection instantly. Elias collapsed to the floor, gasping. Above them, the orbital grid flickered violently. For a brief moment, it stopped responding. Nora rushed to him. You did it? Elias looked up weakly at the sky. But his expression was not relief. It was realization. Because in the silence that followed, a new transmission formed far beyond Earth's orbit. And it was not correcting anymore. It was deciding. The silence after the orbital system paused felt heavier than the alarms before it. Elias lay on the cold floor of the station, breathing unevenly. His vision still flickered with traces of the alien interface, like broken images burned into his mind. Nora knelt beside him, holding his shoulder, but even she could not fully bring him back to the present. Outside, the ocean was still. Too still. The black geometric structures that once rose from it were no longer stable. Their edges blurred like ink dissolving in water. The massive orbital grid above Earth had stopped its full operation, but it had not disappeared. It hovered like a thinking eye that had closed but not forgotten. One of the technicians spoke quietly. Did we win? No one answered. Elias slowly pushed himself up. His voice was rough. No, he said. We didn't win. He looked toward the main screen. The data was unstable, constantly rewriting itself. We interrupted it. Nora frowned. That's different. Elias hesitated. Then nodded once. It means it's still thinking about us. A low vibration rolled through the station. Not an attack. Not a wave. Something subtler. Like pressure changing in a sealed room. Then the ocean changed again. The collapsing structures did not fully disappear. Instead, they folded inward, shrinking into smaller, denser forms. Not destroyed. Reorganized. As if the system was packing itself away for another stage. Nora stepped back. They're leaving? Elias stared at the readings. No. They're refining. A new signal appeared across all systems. This time it was not fragmented or confused. It was perfectly structured. Earth response analysis complete. Final classification updated. The room went silent. Then the next line appeared. Earth, non-conforming intelligence. Elias felt his stomach tighten. That's not a victory label, he said quietly. That's a warning label. Outside, the sky began to change again. The orbital grid was no longer fully active, but parts of it were still awake, watching, adjusting, learning. Nora whispered, "What happens now?" Elias looked at her, and for the first time, he did not have an immediate answer. Then the station trembled slightly. Not from impact. From contact. A new transmission arrived, but it bypassed all human systems. It went directly into every screen, every speaker, every device. The message was short. Earth did not match any predictive model. A pause followed. Then the next line appeared. Revision required. Elias straightened slowly. They're updating their entire system because of us. One of the scientists spoke in disbelief. That means, this wasn't just a probe. It was a full evaluation. Elias nodded. And we failed to fit inside it. The ocean below shimmered faintly. The remaining structures dissolved completely now, not exploding, not collapsing, just fading as if being erased from a higher layer of reality. But the orbital presence did not leave. It stayed. Watching. Thinking. Nora walked closer to the screen. So what does revision mean for us? Elias did not respond immediately. Then the system answered for him. Earth will be reassessed under new parameters. A chill ran through the room. One of the technicians whispered, "That sounds like they're coming back." Elias closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, his expression had changed. Not fear anymore. Understanding. They didn't lose anything, he said. They gained data. Nora turned to him sharply. We fought them off. Elias shook his head. We didn't fight them off. We confused their assumptions. A deep silence followed. Then the final transmission appeared. It was not aimed at Earth's systems. It was broadcast outward, beyond the planet, beyond the solar system. And it said only one thing: origin of nonlinearity confirmed. The words lingered for a long moment. Then the orbital grid slowly began to recede. Not disappearing, but withdrawing like an observer stepping back to reconsider a subject. The sky returned to normal. The ocean returned to water. But nothing felt normal. Nora finally broke the silence. So, it's over? Elias looked at the horizon. No, he said softly. It's documented now. He turned back toward the console. A new alert appeared, faint and unstable, coming from deep space beyond the solar boundary. A signal. Weak, but structured. And it was not asking questions anymore. It was responding. Elias stared at it for a long moment. Then he spoke quietly. They're not done with Earth. Nora looked at the screen. What is it saying? Elias read the pattern forming slowly. Not fully translated yet. Not fully understood. But enough. New observation node detected. Beginning second contact layer. He stepped back slightly, feeling the weight of it. They've already moved past us, he said. This was just the first layer. The signal strengthened again, just enough for one final line to form before the screen flickered. Preparing next interface. Elias exhaled slowly. Somewhere far beyond Earth, something had already begun learning from them again. And this time, it was not arriving. It was coming prepared.